All right, so let's get comfortable. Let's settle in because I actually have a lot to say about this book. And I am joined here today by my. Okay. Well, let me settle the dog. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, welcome everybody to my channel. For those of you all who are joining me for the very first time, a very special welcome to you. My name is Chantel Levon, and I love to talk about books here. I'll always be reading. So before we do anything else, if you haven't already, please subscribe and also like this video. Hopefully you'll find it good, that you'll want to like it. For those of you all who are joining me back, hey fam, hey, good for you to be back here. Happy for that. I recently just finished reading Death of the Author. I read this for a book club. It's a book club pick. For those of you all who know, I am in a book club called Black to the Future, and in that book club we read stories that are written by Black authors and that are sci-fi, futuristic. I think we also read dark horror, but I don't think we've read one of those yet. And I decided to join this book club for the mere fact that these are genres I do not read. So I knew I would be stretched. And so is it June or May? Yes, our May book club choice was Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor and Nnedi Okorafor. And yeah, so I just wanted to share my thoughts because we had, I think it was like a 3-hour discussion, you guys, on this book. It was a lot of thoughts, opinions. People were kind of, I think the group leaned more one way, but there was definite opinions about it. And it just gave me a lot to talk about. I think one of the things I love about book club is that, you really do get to wrestle with your own thoughts by talking with other people about their thoughts. And oftentimes you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't see that, so on and so forth. So today I want to share my own thoughts, my book notes with you guys about this novel. And because I've had some time to simmer a little bit, and I am a processor. So simmering time is very important for me. And that's what I'm going to do. So we're just going to get right into it. All right. I am also trying out a new setup. Something that's a little bit more comfortable for me because my other setup, I was in a chair. It was just a whole production of just trying to get on and tape. So I hope that the lighting is okay enough. I hope the sound is okay enough. I hope my room is clean enough. It is what it is, guys. Behind me is my bookshelf, and I am going to be replacing it. I love it, but it's just not practical anymore because I have books all over my room, all over my house, and my husband is like, I love you and I support you, but I need it a little bit, where I'm not just running into books. I have books in my closet. Okay, so I'm actually looking to replace this bookcase behind me with just some more standard bookcases, which will give me more room for my books. So if any of you all, know a bookcase that you can recommend, please drop it in the comments below because the sister is searching. Okay, so I am going to share my book notes with you guys. It's literally my notes I write. I just like to write my thoughts down after I read a book, especially a book that makes me think or like I'm struggling with. I just like to have time to put my thoughts down. So I call it my book notes, and that's what I'm going to share with you. And this is not a spoiler event here. I'm not going to give anything away, so don't worry about that. But I really am trying to just express what I'm thinking about, or how this book how it left me feeling, and what it left me thinking about. And so, yeah, I don't really rate books. I stopped doing it because it just didn't feel, I don't rate books. It's not authentic for me. After I read a book, I don't say, oh, that's a 5 star, or that's a 3 star, or I liked it, or, or it's good or it's bad. I don't really describe books that way. So that's why I'm like, let me just share my book notes because that is authentic, authentic for me. Okay. So, as I said before, I have a lot to say about this book. I'm looking down because I'm just referencing my book notes. And I'm going to try to say things in a way where you can follow it. How about that? So first, I just want to talk about Okorafor. She's a well published author. Even though she's a well published author, this is the first time that I've ever read anything from her. She has adult fiction, a lot of them. I heard that Binti Home, excuse me, is really good. She also has written young adult fiction, and she also has children's books, which is really interesting for me because I work in the children's book space. So I'm definitely going to look up some of her children's books and read them. She is a sci-fi author. She actually coined the phrase African futurism. I think that's the phrase that she coined, and African Judaism. So her African futurism, that really is kind of her science fiction novels, and her African Judaism, I hope I'm saying that right, is really more in her fantasy realm. She is a prolific writer. She has 2 masters, one in journalism and one in literature, and then a PhD in literature with creative writing. So the woman, not girl, excuse me, the woman is she's doing her thing for sure. And this book, Death of the Author, is her latest. It's her latest adult fiction. And so that's the one that this is how I'm meeting her. I'm meeting her first through this book. So this story is written. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. And the background that I'm going to give you is not going to take anything away because it's pretty much the synopsis, but just with a little bit more details. But this story is written in a frame by frame story, or a story within a story. And I was really excited about that because I like story within story books. I like that structure. And the main story is Zelu's story, the character Zelu. And Zelu is a Nigerian American woman who lives in Chicago. She lives around her family. Her family is very hands on and very active in each other's lives. They have this wonderful tradition of always gathering on a Saturday, all the family at mom and dad's home. She's also a writer. She's a published writer, Zelu is, and she writes more literary fiction. And she works part time as an adjunct professor at the beginning of this novel when it starts. She is not married. She's in her 30s. Let's see, what else is she? She is a paraplegic due to an accident that happened in her childhood. And so she's wheelchair bound. And when we first encounter Zelu, she's a mess. She's a hot mess. She's a hot mess for a couple of reasons. One, she's a hot mess because she finds out at her sister's wedding that she has been let go from her job as an adjunct professor because she was inappropriate and rude to some of her students. That's what is being said. And she also finds out that her book that she's been shopping around, her editor, it hasn't gotten published. So she's just really kind of down in the dumps. Because she lost her job, she has to move back home with her parents. And of course, she doesn't want to do that. So she is really kind of low and wallowing. And she, at her sister's wedding, she doesn't burden her sister with that. She doesn't ruin her sister's wedding. But she definitely is like going through at her sister's wedding. And she smokes some weed. She drinks and she sits down and she starts writing, and out comes this story. Just it almost like gushes out of her, and it is a very different story than what she's used to writing. It is a sci-fi story about robots. When she gets back home, because the wedding took place in another, like on an island, I think, or somewhere else. When she gets back home, she continues to write the story, much to her family's like, "What are you doing? You need to get a job. You need to get your old job back." And she doesn't listen to them. She just locks herself up in the room and she writes and writes and writes and writes this story. And there's just so much energy and synergy with it coming out. And when she's finished, she shares it with MCZ, which is a gentleman that she met at her sister's wedding. And they stayed in contact. They had like a romance kind of thing going on. And immediately he calls her. He's like, "This is mind blowing. This is awesome. Oh my gosh, I couldn't put it down." And she sent it to her editor, and he has pretty much the same response. And that's where the story kind of takes off and really leaps. I said before that this is a structured as a story within a story, and so the other story that is in this book that we go between Zelu story that's written in third person, and we switch to actually the story that she's writing, which is called Rusted Robots. And I want to just show you something so clever, so clever. I absolutely love this cover design. So the first story, Death of the Author, that is about Zelu. But so clever. The story within the story is Rusted Robots. Don't you just love that? I love that. I absolutely love this. It is a beautiful book with the blue edges and all of the symbolism that's within the artwork. You would make sense once you read it. So, where was I? Okay. So the story takes place from there, and we get to read certain chapters of Rusted Robots throughout the whole novel. So Zelu's life, as you can imagine, it changes drastically. Almost overnight, she goes from a broken down, broke writer who does not have a job to a published author with a seven-figure contract book deal and a movie deal. Amazing, amazing. And of course, this changes her life in ways that you can probably predict, but also ways that you will not be able to predict. And I kind of like that about the book. Um, so let's see. I don't want to get too much into the plot. I'm gonna just put you right here because you're beautiful, and then I can turn my pages. Yes. I don't want to get too much into the plot, but um, she. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Rusted Robots part. So, Rusted Robots is a story that takes place when basically humanity is gone. There's only one living human left. And there's this robot, Ankara, who is a scholar and who goes around and talks about like how he's collecting stories. And the robot's collecting stories. And this robot is called a Hume. And Humes are robots with body, like a head and arms. And anyways, this robot gets tangled, infected with another type of robot, which is more AI, and it's called a nobodies because they don't have any bodies. There's nobody with it. Um, and this Hume is on a mission to share this news, this warning that they received from the spider robot about the future. And we get to be on this Hume's journey through that. That's what Rusted Robots, a basic line plot to this story. And so I want to talk about what I enjoyed about this story, and I'm trying not to go too much into the plot to give stuff away. It's so hard, you guys. It's so hard. I really also contemplated on let me just do a full review where I can just freely talk about everything. If you're interested in knowing all my thoughts and all the things, let me know and I will come back and I will do that. But this is not that. This is not that. So, what I liked about this book I liked a couple of things, but before I do that, I want to talk about themes that the book brings up. There's a theme of like family, love, and boundaries. And I think that we see that in the sense that she is a paraplegic and this family has been overprotective of her, probably because of that. But Zelu in herself is a very bold, feisty, brazen type of character. And we see the impacts that her family that can come off as uncaring and unsupportive and callous, how we can see just the different just how love is portrayed that way and the way it damages and the way that it helps. So there's a lot going on with the family, a lot of texture there with it. There is one of the people in my book club is Nigerian, and she's like, "Yep, they're a Nigerian family." That read very authentic, that part. So of their family, well, other people found her family to be like really, really mean and hard, and almost like just awful. So I think depending on how you interpret it will shape what you think about this family. Another theme is just around disability and issues of access and power, and I think that's a huge theme. And at, like it questions it like when should a person or how should a person view themselves that are disabled? What type of limitations come or how do people feel limited that are disabled? And what does freedom and wholeness, what can it look like? And how should one pursue that? What should they risk, right, in order of pursuing wholeness or abledness? I think those are some questions that brings up in the book, and there's lots of dialogue around that. The cost of success and the trappings of success is another theme as we see Zelu's life take a completely different turn. And we see how it impacts her relationships, the ways in which she thinks about herself, and what is possible for her. So that's a huge theme. Another one is technology. And one of the things that I found interesting in this book is that technology is not a villain in this book. It actually, I think, focuses on the good that technology can do. And I think that was really fresh because a lot of like movies or even some books that I've read that has technology in it, it's always like the evil technology, like beware. It's like the warning of technology, and that's very different in this story. And last but not least, we have a theme about the environment and climate change. And that one really kind of gets played out in the Rusted Robots story. So I want to talk a little bit about, before I talk about like the things that I liked about the story and some of the things that I didn't, I want to talk about Zelu herself as a character. As again, I said that she's bold and brazen. She is very much herself, and I found her to be, a very messy protagonist. She doesn't have it all together. We meet her at a low point of her life, when she's just, kind of at a rock bottom per se. And we also meet her when she's very, I would say, adventurous and reckless. But I think that there's a thin line between she has an adventurous spirit, and we definitely see that about her. But we also meet her in a season of her life where she is just reckless as well. I'm holding my pup here in my lap. So, where she's just reckless, she takes risks that especially risk in relationships and sexual risks that are just really reckless. And so we see kind of this character that is messy and who sabotages herself and who puts herself in dangerous and compromising situations, but also doesn't want to be told anything. She's not a character that takes wisdom well or takes correction or warnings. And the family has lived through all these stages that Zelu has been in. And her family is a Nigerian family. She has a lot of siblings, and all of them are successful in their own right with all the right letters behind their names, and they're doing the right things and married and having kids or had kids. And she's kind of like the oddball out, not just because she is disabled, but she also is not doesn't have those things that her sibling has, that her family really prizes and knows how to count. Okay, that's successful. That's what success looks like. And I find her to be, the kind of character that wants to go the different way, wants to forge her own way, one doesn't want to be put into a box. And so there were aspects about her character that I really resonated with, or really liked. And then there's aspects about her character that was like really annoying, because she also, as bold as she was and as brazen as she was, and as much as a risk taker that she was also a big victim. She did a lot of, like, wallowing and complaining a little bit. And so I think she's, which is okay. I think for me, she is like the protagonist that is protagonist, but it's not like one I'm always liking. And I actually liked that part of how she was written. She is not a comfortable space. She's not a comfortable space, and she's very raw. So I want to transition into talk about the things that I really liked about this book. I like the idea of it, just the general idea and concepts. Again, I love the structure, the frame within a frame. But I like this idea of part of the story, or one part of the frame is on Earth, is so grounded in just like raw reality, and the other part of the story is literally in a different, it's like in a world that I hope never to experience, like this dystopian world, right? And there's this play on, or playing with, I think the author was doing, of questioning what is dystopian, what is utopian, because in Zelu's world, she actually is experiencing a utopia when she has her success, or she imagined she would be, or that's the anticipated, kind of feeling. um and this dystopian world, there's almost like everything around is just death and decay, and yet there are these things of beauty and of life and of loveliness that's there. And so I think that I like the fact that nothing is black and white, that there's usually a mixture of both. And I love the concept of that, that was there. I also love this idea of like a book being centered around a writer, and like the writer's struggles and and journey. She often, pulled from quotes, and connections. Like she would name her passwords, different like phrases or characters from other books. So you had a sense of like how well read and what this author was reading, and that she was just very, very smart. But you also understood the struggles, especially in the literary world. Like, so it pulls into question like who gets published and who doesn't get published. And also there is this question that the book raises about, well, who is able to write the story? And this is a question that's not only centered in Zelu's world, but also in Rested Robots. Who is able to write the story? Is it just humanity that can tell and create stories, or can robots do it too? Um, so another thing that I liked is that, oh, I have hearts by the things that I like, guys. So um, is the um, along with the frame, in the frame story, I also like the way in which how the story was structured as far as its narrative style. So again, I said that Zelu's story was told in third person. But we also had family members and her, I guess, boyfriend was interviewed. So there was third person that talked about Zayla, and then it would switch to like the father being interviewed, the mother being interviewed, the sibling being interviewed. And then it could switch to the story of Rested Robots. So you had like three main narrative styles that were going on in this book. And I really liked the variety. I felt like that it had a good texture to it. It kept me interesting. And so, yeah, so I liked that aspect of the story. Um, let's see. Okay, so the parts that I found to be problematic, um, character development. That's a huge thing for me. I'm really a character driven reader in my stories. And so I feel like a lot was poured into, or the author kind of really knew um, Zelu very well. I was actually listening to a couple of interviews, and it seems like that this author had a lot in common with Zelu. Even how she wrote the story, like she was like it just like flowed out of her. Um, but I don't think that there was a lot of character development that was done with the peripheral cast of characters. It just, they were kind of flat to me, and that was a disappointment. So I wasn't able to connect or care or kind of resonate with them in ways that I wanted to, or I hoped to, or I felt that I should, right? um I feel like for the family there was just way too many siblings. I don't even know how many siblings there were. I didn't go back and count, but there were just too many. Maybe I felt there was too many because they kind of didn't have they weren't interesting. They weren't really individual in as far as their development and their relationship with Zelu. So when they would say things, maybe jabs or certain things of that nature, it fell flat because I didn't have an understanding of the nature of what is your relationship with this sister? What's your relationship with that brother? I'm the youngest of four, and all of us have a very different relationship with each other. And in order to understand our sisterhood, you have to understand like our relationship. If someone says something, if one sister says something to me and the same sister says the exact same thing, it can land very differently because of the nature of our relationship and our shared memory. So I kind of thought that if she had less siblings, she it would have been maybe easier for her to develop them. So we're kind of seeing, kind of getting the whole person, or at least a more tangible aspect to their relationship. And that was missing to me. Another character that was not developed well at all was MCZ. He just was this, character that would fly in and out of her life. And he just kind of was the rescuing the damsel or saying the perfect thing. And just very flat. Like I didn't know really anything about him at all. Um, Except he was gorgeous and good looking and that he seemed to really like her, but I don't even know why he really liked her. Like there was no substance there. And I thought that that was a really big missed opportunity because there was a part of me that wanted to be like for the relationship, and or just for him. Like she's an interesting person, so I'm not even saying like for him being with her, but just to be for him. And I just struggled with that because I actually didn't know very much about him at all, and so he just was uninteresting. He was uninteresting, just like the siblings were. They were not interesting to me because there wasn't a lot there. um so one character that I did find interesting that I wish we would have had more time with is this character Wind. And Wind is a woman that um, MCC introduces her to and that she meets in a moment of a crisis. And she's just I loved her tone. I loved her character. I feel like this is a woman that the author like really had a very specific idea in mind and knew her because she just wrote that way. So I think for me, I'm like, wow, I know that you can do that because you've written characters that are just so alive and so vibrant and dynamic and layered. And I just kind of wish for more of that with the characters in her story. Um, Another thing that I had issue with is what I call the magical men or the damsel being saved. There's a lot of damsel saving in this book by men, and it just made it interesting. And the majority of the damsel saving is was done by white men, which is really really interesting to me. I'm not going to go into it because that's for you to discover, but there are some really significant life changes that happen to her, and they happen because a magical man swooped in and just boom, here you go. I kind of thought that was plot lazy, or I also didn't like the messaging that it gave. I wasn't a fan of that part at all. And so I wish that she would have had some more agency, or we would have seen her have more agency in solving her own problems, or that there was a different cast of characters that could have helped to swoop in and presented these opportunities for her that come her way. But I really just was not a fan of the magical men swooping in and doing some rescuing of her. Um, yeah, I wasn't a fan of that. Let's see. Another thing that kind of was irritating to me was that it just seems that the Nigerian culture was very forced in this book. And I've read a lot of books that's has different cultures than mine. And one of the things that I liked is when it wasn't forced, but I was able to just experience it in very natural and authentic ways. And so this was different. And Kara was just, it's a fabric, um, a particular fabric, and a Nigerian fabric. And it was just like listed so much and car this and when I wear mine car that my car that it's like and it's like, oh, and then I picked my Louis Vuitton bag, then I sent my Louis Vuitton bag, and when I went to her house I brought my Louis Vuitton bag. It was just so much of it that it was like, oh, okay, I get it. And that's the same thing as food. Every time they ate, it was a listing of the food, and it was also the same food, but it was like a list of the same food. And I just felt like I understand or have a sense that the author is trying to really kind of convey or, color in culture, but I just felt like it was a little too forced. And so it took me out of the story. It started to take me out of the story versus allowing me to stay inside the story. Another kind of thing that I struggled with was the ending. Towards the end, the pacing sped up. Up until that, I thought the pacing was pretty consistent. Oops, I thought the pacing was pretty consistent. But really, kind of right at the end, yeah, it sped up, and there was lots of things that were happening, and there were some things that didn't make sense. And the very end of the book, when I finished it, I was like, "What?" Versus, "Wow, okay." I didn't have any of those three. I was not. I was not like, "Wow." I was not like, "Okay." I was like, "Wait a second, what?" Wait, let me go back. Rewind. I was not alone. Most of I think the first almost 45 minutes of my book club discussion, we were trying to figure out what is happening. And that was frustrating because it wasn't like what happened in a good way. It was like literally no, what just happened. So I understand, I think, where the author was trying to be clever and it's this twist at the end, and I'm all for twist. But I just think that in order for the twist in the end to be like, it's good. I don't want to use the word good. Um, it's not significant. In order for the twist in the end to really work, right? To be useful, to really work, it means that some other things in the story prior to you reading the end needed to be different. And so it was hard once you get to the end and you're like, oh, that's what this is. And you go back and you connect the dots and it like, oh, I see it. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You weren't able to do that. And that's where in line the confusion. I liked the idea of the twist. I just don't think it was well executed. That's my that's my take on it. Um I yeah, that was yeah. I found that I was way more interested in the rested robots part of the story. There is a quote that one of my book members said that the author did so much with so little, meaning in the robot section, because it wasn't a whole lot of chapters of that we got. And she did with so little with so much. That means the Zulu section, she did little with it, but it took up the majority of the book. And I really felt like that kind of summed it up for me. I think that there's a lot of promise to this book. I liked a lot about it, the concept and the themes and what it was trying to say, and conversations that just by the very nature of you reading it are going to come up. Um, the messy protagonist, I liked her in this, very different type of character. I like that. But I feel like the execution on some fundamental things just really kind of left me longing for something different. Maybe if there was another, I know this author talked about in an interview that I saw that she just edited this book so much that her eyes started twitching for like a year. And I can appreciate that. And I know like you don't get to something like this without a tremendous amount of work. So I do appreciate all of the work um, that went into her writing this book. And so I say all my comments are wrapped in a big ribbon of just appreciation and gratitude that this book is here, and it's here for us to read, and it's here for us to have conversations about. I do want to shout out the um, let's see if they say who designed this beautiful cover. Oh my gosh, because you guys, it is so beautiful. I might have to find this. Oh my gosh. Oh, I just love it. Like, I love this cover. Oh, it's designed by Kyle O'Brien. Kyle designed this edition, and it is just gorgeous. It is just gorgeous. Um, so, um, so yeah. I, so I encourage you to pick this up and give it a read. Um, every book is not for everybody, but I do think that every book is worth a read and worth attention. So if you are a George R. R. Martin fan like I am, he endorsed this book. It's one of the reasons why I was excited to read it because I'm a huge George R. R. Martin fan. And he said, quote, her best work yet, Death of the Author reads like 3 novels in one, or maybe 4, about fame and family, culture and change, and the power of story, the writer's life, and robots. This one has it all. And so I think, like, I do agree with him. This one has it all. I think it maybe has too much, and I think that it could have, maybe things could have been developed a little bit more if it had a little bit less. So I agree with George R. R. Martin there, for sure with that one. So I think that I've done enough talking by now. I think I've said what I need to say. Again, let me know if you are interested in a fuller like book review where I spoil everything about it. If so, I'll hop back on and I'll do that. But for now, I think we'll leave it at this. Again, if this sounds like your cup of tea, if you are into robots, if you are into sci-fi, even if you're not like me, like give it a try, give it a go, give it a read. And let me know in the comments below if you like them. If you already have read Death of an Author, I would really appreciate you sharing your comments with me and we can talk about it because, yeah, this one, I would love to know that. And if you've read any of her other works, if you can leave that in the comments below. I think I will read some more if she writes more like of the rusted robot story, if she decides to do something with that, I would be interested in reading that because, again, that was my favorite part of the book, the actual rusted robots. So that's all for now, guys. I'm going to hop off and see what's for dinner. But thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for making it to the end. For those of y'all who did, put a smiley face in the chat below. Let me know that you are here. And if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. Help this family growing. We're growing little bit by little bit, but we are growing. And I thank you guys so much for doing that. And also share this video with your friend and this channel. I think that is all that I have for now. My leg is officially asleep because my dog is, he's been knocked out. Well, let's see if we can get some of my love. This is my little Kai. Oh, I woke him up, but he says thank you. And we will talk to you guys later. Have a very good night. Visit a local bookstore. Treat yourself. And as always, you know what to do. Stay reading. Bye.